So you mentioned that, you were out of corporate for a while and then you came back in, and there's a bit of change now. When it comes to this topic of the unconscious biases behind patriarchy and gender inequality, there's a big conversation in workspaces around. I mean, there's summits, there's forums, there's all of these workshops, all these, talk shops and all of that kind of stuff. Is it really effective? Are the gatekeepers of organizations that are still built on a patriarchal way of thinking in terms of a woman's role truly opening their minds and changing their attitudes and then changing the culture in the workplace, from your experience?
It's a journey, ultimately, and I think it all depends on the environment or the company per se. And I speak, I guess, from my experience. Everybody's got to actually want it. And it's not just lip service and saying this is what we've done, people are going on this course or that program, whatever. It actually has to be stuff that's, whether it's small changes and movements, you have to actually do it. Otherwise, there's no point. We're just talking about it year after year, conference after conference, and we just keep going and you just keep rolling. And it's paying lip service to it. So it's a genuine shift and change. And it also aids in the fact that the more you have women in positions of power to effect the change, the better it is as well. Because it's not enough to go, no, we hear, the whole top layer is male and we're effecting change. What do you know about that effecting change? Have you actually had a conversation with a female? And I can explain to you my experience of coming to the office every day or of interacting and how that feels. Or my view as a female from my perception or how I experience it is very different from your experience. So it's about actually truly engaging for me. It's about truly engaging, actually saying or putting into action. Because it's not going to change overnight, guys. These are things that people have learned from when they were born. It's instilled in you. It's not, you can't change templates. We all have templates. There's things that happened to you as a child, that happened to myself, that have affected how I behave, how I am towards a male or how males are towards me. So that's a long, major journey to be on.
Lynette speaks the truth. You need awareness for change to happen. A self-awareness, and then an awareness that seeps into the group, and then for people to be thoroughly engaged in something that they see will benefit them in the long run. In companies where the hierarchy is strong, so things need to come from the top down. You need people in those positions to buy into the idea and to push it. But you also need receivers, so they can spread it where they are on their level of influence. And in terms of where I'm working, for example, last year there was a huge outcry on Black lives, right, in the States. And my company is global, head office is in the US, and I saw how they went into the issue, and people who they knew in the company could get hold of this issue and run with it. They were earmarked or they stepped up because the culture allows you to step up and to do something about it. So all over the world, we were engaged in, diversity and inclusion issues, and there was conversations, there were classes, we all had to enroll into it. But as we all know, it could be just part of lip service. But what I've learned from the culture in the company, one of the tenets of operation is ask. They always said ask. So if you're in a culture where you can ask, it means people can answer or are willing to. And I've experienced this for myself. The culture where I work allows you to express yourself. And if you don't, it means there's a problem in that department, and you can actually go to someone to help you deal with that. So it's very important that those who have influence, those who have power, buy into the idea and not just, say what they need to say, but they do something about it. And I can safely say my company is doing what it can with the staff it has in the position it's in around the world to get these conversations going. We can meet in the corridors and talk about things. We have coffee chats with a whole region where people can ask the CEO, dude, what are we doing in Uganda about this? And he can give an answer, or he can say, speak to this person. Everyone is involved in the issues. But what do we do about those places where it's not happening? They need people who are brave enough to stand up. That's basically it. Yeah.
So what I've realized is I'm in a position now where there are no issues of gender and all that kind of stuff, but we're the minority. And the people given the opportunities, or the people who are in the positions to change the narrative or to effect the change or to effect the lip service that Lynn is talking about, don't do it. They pretend to. Like, if you see them on SABC, you'll be like, wow, he's goals or she's goals. When you see them on whatever, Instagram, you're like, he's goals. You'll see them handing over houses. You see them, but they don't. They are the main oppressors of women. They're the main oppressors of opportunities. Like, they want to keep the opportunity to themselves. So they will not say to, oh, Sashia, listen, there's an opportunity. Let's do this. They'll give you maybe 0.001% of the opportunity. So the ones with the opportunity, the majority, are the ones who do the lip service. They react only when something happens. They're not proactive. And in my former job, I was in a situation where my boss, who was female, had a close protection for whatever reason. But she said, okay, I have a resource. I'm here. I don't need him. He must do A, B, C, and D. I'm not just going to sit. I'm not going to just pay him to sit. I mean, when I need him, I need him. But so she says to me, please ask him to go pick up something wherever. And I asked him, and apparently my tone was disrespectful. And he came for me, and he choked me. And he's like, yeah, you're disrespectful. Next time you do that, I'm going to beat you up. And I'm like...
That is extreme. Whoa.
And,
got issues.
no, like, seriously. And at the time, I was so freaked out. I did not know what to do. And I expected, because I think I would do the same thing if someone else was in my position, someone to pick me up and say, okay, this is what's happened to you. Pick up. Let's move forward with A, B, C, D. But I handled the situation on my own. And all they said is, yeah, respect is, it's all about respect. And I'm like, but where in my job description does it say I must respect him because he's male and he's Zulu and, that kind of stuff.
But
And
how do you even determine whether you're disrespectful?
Yeah.
exactly.
When
There was no
she was doing
determination.
her job.
Yes, she was
Just doing her job.
Exactly. So his frustration was whatever it was, but I was like caught in the middle of it. And because he's this big person who lifts 200 kilos every morning, there was nothing I could do. I was scared. And all they said was, yeah, you should have gone to the police and made a report.
Can
Therefore,
I
your
say
incident did not happen.
I know she still has to respond to the, is there a change in the workplace? To her point, to Kelly's point, there is something that I've seen over and over, and I could not use words to describe, but sometimes it's our own people. When I say own people as a black female, it's our own females, it's our own women, it's our own men who hold us back, who don't give us the space we need to be who we need to be, to carry forward a mission that's going to benefit all of us. She's mentioning a male who is clearly a black male who is demanding cultural respect in a work situation. Already that's clouded with a lot of things that should not be there. Like I said earlier, we're expected to pay obeisances to certain rules and submit to certain rules, cultural rules, in areas where it should not be there. And that's one of the enemies of progress in the workplace, where we're trying to unite to do something better for other women in the space of women, other black people in the space of black people, but we are our own enemies. I think that is a point that needs to be made, that we're trying to progress, but we ourselves in some ways are, shooting ourselves in the foot by holding on to archaic ideas that serve nobody about roles, female, male roles. So just wanted to bring up that point. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm going to take this way back and just simplify it completely. Before we can start talking about effecting changes in the workplace, we need to all remember we come from somewhere. We all come from home. So what starts there determines how you then carry yourself further. There's even a biblical reference, I think it was Ephesians 5:22 to Ephesians 6:9, where they initially started talking about a husband and a wife, then they talk about how you're treating each other as a husband and a wife, how it impacts your children, and how you treat the people who work for you at home, and how you are then all going to take it out into the workplace. So a lot of people come to the workplace because they come from where they come from. And can I also say, these men come from here. These men have been here, right? So these very men who subsequently either oppress us or support us, whatever it is, they started in their mother's wombs. There is not a single man, unless someone can prove otherwise, that is walking and breathing on this earth that did not come out of his mother's stomach. That's where we always need to start, and that's what they often need to remember. And you'll even hear a lot of these high-profile men, they will always acknowledge their moms. Very few acknowledge their fathers. It's not to say that they do not recognize dad, but they definitely get and they recognize mom. So that's just one thing I needed to put out there initially. And I mean, I'll even speak about my own other personal experience. We had this insufferable male boss. You know, he was amazing in my interview, and I was like, oh, I look forward to working with this gentleman. But now when you start working with him in the workplace, he's just unpleasant, he's difficult, and he's, you know. And then one day, his wife comes to the office with his kids. Ha! He went from being Hercules to being a little mouse. Like, I literally watched, and I was like, wow. So there's something you are not able to be at home, and we feel that projection in the workplace. And all of us, in some way, shape, or form, for some it's more pronounced, for others not so much. But it's so important to think of, everyone comes from somewhere, and some people are consistent in their behavior, others not so much. And sometimes you can always tell that something at home is not so lekker. This is why this person is coming forward and projecting this persona. But insofar as changes in the workplace are affected, I remember there was an award ceremony, and there was an award for transformation. So transformation is all sorts of things, but for some reason we always just pigeonhole ourselves into thinking transformation is about race and gender. It's far more than that. But if we take it as race and gender, I was looking at all the nominees for this award. There were Afrikaner men, Indian men, English men, and I'm like, transformation, you know? So I was quite taken aback. And then eventually the winner was announced. I don't remember if it was I think it was the Indian male. And the first thing he did is he acknowledged all his counterparts, but he also then went and addressed the elephant in the room. Like, all y'all are probably perplexed. How is transformation being awarded to a non-transformative individual and a non-transformative gender? And he says, we have the power to bring about the transformation. I am in a position where I can effect change. I am in a position where I can deliberately go out of my way every single day in this role and say, Lynette is doing a phenomenal job. I don't care that she is a foreign national, she is a black female, she is the best at what she does, so she should be marketing executive. If I am going to get her to that position, I need to set her up and groom her to fulfill that role. That completely changed my mindset in so many ways, and I've seen it practiced, but it was one of those where I realized I had my own biases. I expected someone to be in that role, to be someone who is so-called transformed. So I mean, you do have people who are in those positions of power, who have the power to effect that change. We can just, and if you want to hold someone to account, that's those people. And quite frankly, they are fewer. I mean, an exec, you can have a company with 50,000 people. There will never be more than 10 execs. Muster up the courage, knock on that door, pick up that phone call, speak to that person. He or she in that position is that person who can actually make that or effect that change that it is that you want to see. But oftentimes, whether we are overcome, we are a bit timid, or it is what it is. But I thank my matriarchal upbringing again. I never ever had to feel any less as a female. In fact, the fact that I'm a black female became a thing when I was in corporate. Before that, if you're playing sports, I'm not thinking, oh, we're playing boys. We are basketball players. We are soccer players. We are cricketers. No one ever said anything about gender or color. You fit into that profile as a holistically. So it's those sort of things, and those are the sort of things that you bring about. I feel the people who are aware of their gender is actually males from a very young age. Boys are very aware. My daughter used to take part in co-ed sports. They would run, and you see the boys' facial expression changing. I'm being left behind by a girl, you know, and then something in them changes, and then they get to the finish line and they're weepy because a girl beat them. The girls are not thinking I'm running against a boy. They're thinking I'm running a race. I want to win. Full stop.
Can I just say something? She mentioned a point where she says we all come from somewhere. And it's starting to me to appear as a privilege to actually say, this is where I'm from, because most people don't come from anywhere. They may have a roof over their head, but they're not going home to 3 meals. They're not going home to a warm bed. So it's becoming a privilege to actually come from somewhere. That's what I think.